Gives it left side to Cantor. Ennis with 11. Hands to Hayward, who's got 18. He gets to the elbow, fires and hits. He's got to bounce, man. He's got to bounce to his game tonight.
This is Trevor Booker. We are ready to tip it off. Are you? Let's do this. Jazz basketball is on the air.
Well, there we go. We tried something. It's not really working entirely. Hopefully you can hear me all right. We've got this thing a little bit wired, so some production happens, but not a lot. Good morning. Welcome to Tip Off today. Early morning edition for you, not so much for us. We're still in Indianapolis, and I still have a view of the brick wall. Apologize. There was no Empty the Noggin last night. Quite frankly, the Empty the Noggin got outdone by the quest for the best shrimp cocktail with incredible horseradish shrimp cocktail sauce at St. Elmo's here in Indianapolis. So if you ever get a chance, I would strongly suggest hitting that, doing that along the way. We got a short one today because I got to Skype with the kids or hang out with the kids coming up here, but I wanted to bang this thing out before we did that. Remember, you can interact with our broadcast at the interaction line, 801-237-38. We take a question for Ron every night. If we use it on the air, we'll try to get you Jazz tickets to an upcoming game. That's 801-237-38. Also, you can ask a question to a player, and then I'll go to practice or wherever and get the player to answer your question, and we'll put that on the air as well. And then I even try to send it to you if I use it, but I haven't gotten to that point of the season yet. So that's 801-237-38 for you to be a part of our broadcast. We'll give the NBA 5. We'll break down what's going on with the Jazz after the loss last night in Indiana. Let's do that now. NBA 5. Anthony Davis last night, 27 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks. And they lost. Cleveland, LeBron went 32, 12, and 10. Cleveland's beginning to get some of the basics out of the way, like 51 of their 81 shots came from the big three. Okay, so they used 51 of 81 shots. But then when you actually dig a little deeper, they used 26 of 30 of their free throw attempts were big three done also. So about 65 of their 94 possessions were LeBron, Love, or Irving. And once you start to do that, then you're going to be very difficult to beat no matter where you are defensively or what's taking place. LeBron obviously has assumed the point guard duties in a lot of those. When Dellavedova got hurt, we caught them on the other side of it. They tried to play a regular point guard the first night. May have figured something out by turning it over to LeBron. On the other end, in New Orleans, you've got this brilliant talent in Anthony Davis. And unfortunately, you don't have anyone to go with it. Their bench is awful. Austin Rivers, John Salmons, and Jimmer Fredette are just not good enough to be a bench in the NBA. I mean, I'm not sure actually any of those guys are NBA players at this point. I mean, Jimmer's probably the closest to the three, but if we're honest, he hasn't really proven he can hold his ground in the NBA yet. So, and Austin Rivers is, I think, on his way out of the league. They didn't pick up his option, and John Salmons is pretty old. That's a real problem. It's too bad because Anthony Davis is so special. You'd really like New Orleans to be good. So you'd like to see them make the playoffs. If for example, New Orleans or Oklahoma City is not going to make the playoffs, it'd sure be nice if New Orleans did so Anthony Davis could get that exposure. We could get to see him more often. He's just a special, special player. Kevin Pelton wrote a fascinating piece yesterday about aging in the NBA and how certain statistics show aging, and you can see that LeBron is on the wrong side of it. He promptly went 32, 12, and 10. And that, his blocks are down, his offensive rebounds are down, his athletic plays are down. Anthony Davis is on the other end of this thing where he's going to go make his run, and now here it's his world. He's 22, 21 years old, and just an incredible talent we have not seen the likes of in the NBA. Frankly, he and DeMarcus are both physically at a point we have not seen. It's hard to find comps on. Davis' comp is probably Kevin Garnett, but he's much better than he ever was offensively. With a pretty neat set of skills. Derrick Rose looked right last night for Chicago, which is awfully exciting. 24 points, 7 assists, 9 of 20 shooting. If you see the highlights, he kind of looks a little bit closer to the old Derrick Rose than we've seen in a while. There are two rookies, though, which are so vital to them. Both played 5, McDermott and Mirchik. Both played just 5 minutes and were scoreless. Interesting game between the Clippers and the Spurs last night. Kawhi Leonard evidently can see. Yesterday we talked about he couldn't see. Last night he had 26, 10, 3, and 3 on what was the 500th win of the career together for Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan. Think about that for a minute. 500 wins together. That's 10 years of 50 wins. Yeah, you can do that math too. And Kawhi Leonard was the go-to guy on both ends. He switched and guarded Chris Paul late in the game defensively, and then from also was getting the play calls offensively. So it was really his game on this historic night for Duncan, Manu, and Tony, which tells you a little bit about the Spurs' depth. Also tells you where they're heading with Kawhi. But a huge night, kind of bust out for him. He's been having that vision problem. If you didn't catch yesterday's tip-off, where you can't see entirely. Well, evidently you could see last night. The Clippers just have not gelled yet. They're 4-2, but for them to lose a close game at home seems a little surprising, and maybe that's just a bad matchup with Leonard's ability to guard CP3 and shut him down a little bit at that. New York's got an interesting dance going on with Phil Jackson trying to be the GM and the non-head coach while being on the floor talking to them about securing the ball better. Pretty interesting kind of way to watch this thing. I'm not sure how this is all going to play out with New York and Derrick Rose. And, the one thing that I think gets lost when you're around New York because you're New York is the fact that their roster's terrible. And that's probably a bigger issue than anything else, is that their roster is just terrible. And that's why they don't win, more so than you can go look at everything else. They don't win because of that. All right, let's turn that is your NBA 5. Let's turn the focus over to the Jazz. If you're a longtime tip-off listener, I've talked about that game last night. I didn't know how injured they would be, but I've talked about that game for a long time, that we were going to have nights where we just weren't very good. And it was going to happen. We're a young team. Dennis has talked about it numerous times in various interviews that things just, somewhere along the line we're going to have times where the offense doesn't click and the ball doesn't move the right way and all these things. And last night was that night. And last night really, as much as anything, was a night where the Jazz struggled off the bench, and some of the depth got them. The starters actually had a fabulous game last night. If you go look at the numbers on last night, when the starters are on the floor, the Jazz were plus 18 last night. Plus 18. The starters shot 62% together as a group. It was the minute you went anywhere else, it fell apart. Trevor Booker came in for Enes Kanter, and the 5 minutes that group was on the floor, they were minus 13. Trevor Booker, Alec Burks, Dante Exum, Rudy Gobert, Jared, Joe Ingles group was minus 8. The group I talked about is working so well. Same thing with the starters and Gordon and Trey and Derek with Joe in were minus 5 in 3 minutes. The starting 5 which is encouraging, was really good last night. They just they were plus 18 in 17 minutes of a game in which you lose. That's almost impossible to have happen. But and Gordon was brilliant. 30 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block. 11 of 15. I don't know how long he can keep this up. He is playing with with a bounce, with a happiness, with an enjoyment of what's going on. His numbers are just absurd right now. It's only 7 games, but it's a pretty long 7-game stretch for him. He's averaging 18 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists a game, shooting 47% overall, 34 from 3. What I love, he's taking half of his shots from 3 and the other half basically at the rim. His free throw attempts are down a little bit, though he can't miss. It's really, everything about it right now on Gordon's end is incredibly impressive. He's become a smarter player. He's eliminated the mid-range jumper from his game. He has become a stronger player going to the basket. He's finishing at the rim at a better level. When he does shoot the mid-range jumper, he's picking good spots, and he's really been, interesting. He's dropped the mid-range jumper from his game. He's 16 of 22 on the mid-range jumper. He probably could keep it coming if he'd like to. He's also 65% in the restricted area this year. It's really terrific. The guy's just playing great basketball. At some point, he'll probably tire out. That shot will probably not fall quite the same. He's got a heavy burden again this year. But it is really cool to see. And 24 years old and just looks as though he's matured and his body's matured and his game's matured, and he was the man last night. Probably could have gotten a few more shots down the stretch. I think that probably could have been a fair request for Gordon to get a few more shots down the stretch. We became kind of funky late in the game where, Indiana just makes things really hard on you. And Indiana went and held us to 17 points in the fourth quarter. And the final 5-minute shot selection, Cantor hits a three. We fall behind by 8 by the time we get to the 6-minute mark. And you're against Indiana, you may be out of it at that point. Cantor hits a three to bring us to 5. Hayward then turns it over. Trey misses a layup inside. And then we just, from the 3:40 on, it's as though we just got 3 happy. Cantor misses a 3. Exum had a wide open 3 he had to take, and he misses it. Trey missed a 3. Favors missed a layup, got 2 free throws. Favors missed a little jump shot. Gordon hits now to get him to 30, but this game's now over by that point. So we just, the offensively did not execute down the stretch and got stymied. I'm not surprised at all about what I saw. That's a game in which I frankly anticipated all year long that defense would get up on us on the back end of a back-to-back and impede us and make it so the guys couldn't get through their routes. You could see them grabbing and holding and doing all the things defensive teams do, and hopefully we learned something from it because we only score 86 points. For the first time all year, really the offense to some extent completely fell apart. Sometimes it's just whether you make your open shots. Last night we were 44% on our open looks because Hayward was 7 of 8. Cantor's really nailing them too. Unfortunately, Trey continues. He was 1 of 8 on uncontested looks last night. The 2 shots he made, to me, were just instinctual shots. Everything else right now, he's thinking about it. But, there's a lot of other issues other than Trey. If you'd like to, zero in on one on a night that I think was pretty predictable, you're welcome to. But I think that when you look at a little bit of what's going on, the bench had a really tough night last night. That was not a lot of help off the bench last night. Some of the plus-minus numbers on the bench guys last night are pretty awful. Joe was minus 15. Trevor was minus 24. On a road game back-to-back, you got to get something out of your bench, and they simply didn't. Alec's not rolling right now. The 1 free throw attempt for Alec on a 4 for 13 game, that's really good defense. But Alec also is going to the line all of a sudden less than he has before. I think he's down at, actually, I guess he's right about where he was last year. He's at 4.7 attempts. So if he can maintain, if Alec can maintain the rate he's going to line and continue to shoot the 3, I think that's a pretty good sign. But he's not, he's shooting 41% for the season, which is off a little from his career 44. But if he can keep shooting the 3, then his effective field goal percentage is a little bit better. But he didn't have a great night last night. And actually, if you kind of look through his game log all of a sudden he hasn't linked a bunch of nights together. He's had some, interestingly, he's had some very good on the ball defensive games that have held the Jazz together. But it's no big deal. He's, frankly, he's probably been fine, but, you look at the losses and suddenly you can kind of see a trend where he becomes pretty important part of this offense. And Trey's just scuffling. There's things Trey's doing well. I thought last night was the best passing game he's had of the year. and maybe of his career, frankly. 8 assists, some really good dimes. He's just not knocking down open shots right now. I mean, his uncontested percentage, I don't have it, is got to be crazy low. Those are good looks. He's just not getting them, and at this point, it's building on itself. He's a young kid with a huge amount of pressure from every aspect, right? I mean, if you just take he wants to be great. He's not great right now. He's suddenly 21 years old, and things aren't working for him, and last year it all made sense to him because it was all brand new and his legs got tired, and this year he came out and fully expected that he'd come out and things would work. He'd be back online and he'd done a strength training, be better at the rim, and it'd all come together, and it's not. Now all of a sudden you're pressing, you got a new coach, you're thinking a lot because you're a point guard on this system, which is pretty complicated. Your family is banking on you to come together. You get a huge amount of pressures, and right now it's not clicking for him. So he'll get it back together. He's not a 32% shooter and 24% from threes. He may not turn out to be a great shooter in his career, but he's not a 32% shooter. He's got to get it back together, though, because Dante's not an answer. Dante's not ready yet. The franchise is not going to put Dante in that position. It's not an option to start Dante Exum, frankly. Dante can't hold 30 minutes. Many of you chuckled at the over-dipped Oreo cookie theory that we've talked about. Trey's an over-dipped Oreo cookie right now. We probably underdipped some of our Oreo cookies. One or two of them I don't think we underdipped. We probably held just right. Derek, we might have underdipped a little bit. Ennis, I don't think we underdipped. I think if we had dropped him into the middle of the sea much earlier than we are right now, I think it could have been disastrous. And we're seeing with Trey what happens. It'd be really nice to have, both the last 2 years when Trey's been struggling, have been really nice to not necessarily have him out in the middle of the ocean flailing. But that's not the option that we had on this team. And right now that's where poor Trey is out in the middle of the ocean flailing, and we're going to protect Dante, and Trey's going to be out there having to deal with it. And that's just the reality of the situation he's in, and now he's got to, proverbially, he's got to sink or swim with it. He'll get better than he is right now. He's a tough kid. He's been doubted his whole life. He'll fight through this, but he's not playing particularly well. Any questions? And defensively, frankly, is a bigger concern in some ways than what we have offensively. Does not look like we have any questions on this quick early morning tip-off. So I think I'm wrapped up. I don't have a lot else. We had to Atlanta. Atlanta's going to be tough. New York is not playing well, but it's New York. And then we go to Toronto, who is playing well. So this road trip heads along. Last night did not stun me, shock me, surprise me. Didn't even really disappoint me. Kind of saw, bottom line, if you're Indiana, you've lost 6 in a row, you're injury riddled, you're playing for your lives. A.J. Price even said it, I'm playing for my life. And you look at your schedule and you got Utah coming in, you're giving it all because you figure if you can't get Utah, what are you going to get? And they've played, every game they'd played was close. So it wasn't like they were getting blown out and losing by 20 or, their play system, their defense is fabulous. They got into our guys. We didn't quite understand. Gordon was terrific. The bench gave us nothing on a back end of a back-to-back. It's the NBA. It's not a huge stunner what took place there last night. You were never blowing them out of the table. You were never going to blow them out. And it's as though we got up a little early and we thought we were going to run away. And when we didn't run away, then we suddenly started climbing uphill. And you start climbing uphill, and that when you're in a lot of trouble. That is tip-off. Have a good one.